how would you describe this new era we are going in? What would be some character?
I sort of facetiously refer to it as the post-everything economy.
The post-everything.
Yeah, because
it's a big word.
Well, it is, yeah, but it's intentionally, it's sort of poking fun of itself, right? It's a new century, all right? So it's the 21st century. We're moving into some kind of post-industrial world where, the things that are interesting and innovative aren't, a faster assembly line. There's new things here at work, new ways of people working together, new ways for us potentially to resolve our problems. I'm not a believer. I don't believe there's some hidden abracadabra magic in the web. It provides mechanisms for us to hate each other potentially just as much as we could learn to love each other. So it's not some panacea. On the other hand, however, it decreases the cost of involvement to such a level that it makes it possible for people to interact in ways that were formerly impossible. It was just too expensive, or basically, even if you had money, it wasn't enough because other people wouldn't participate. It was only for the money before, and that's a profoundly different thing. It's often called the democratization of media. That's the wrong term because it's got nothing to do with democracy.
But
it's got a lot to do with openness and low cost. So democratization is the wrong term, but it's sort of, that term has become embedded in the discussion, even though it's completely the wrong one. It makes it seem like everything's egalitarian. Everyone has an equal voice. It doesn't mean that at all. It shouldn't anyway.
Are the people ready for this openness?
Well, to a varying extent, yeah, people are. I mean, it's another one of those generational things. You'll find.
Is it a generational thing?
Yeah, I mean, some people are inherently more open, and the younger the people, the more likely they are to, for example, live their life in an open way online, and so on. And it's less likely the older you are. If you go to different sectors, take the business sector in general. The presupposition of business, at least until quite recently, was that you're better off if everything's secret, not even private, but secret. So the businesses organize themselves around secrets. They have secret recipes, they have secret plans, they have secret business processes, they have secret agreements between other businesses. And, so you have a history of people believing that's the norm, and you should only do the opposite if there's some reason to. And so for a lot of more established companies in the past, the times when they were seemingly open or seemed to open up was almost like a publicity stunt. They were doing it to convince people of something, and then of course you'd find out later that it was just that, it was a stunt. My favorite example is the General Motors social media work, their blog, which was touted as such a great thing. Look at General Motors there. But they would never talk about their healthcare overhang problem, where they owed billions of dollars, or their schemes to try to exact a new agreement from the unions to take less money. They never talked about that. All they ever talked about was the styling of their automobiles, or how nice their steering wheels would fit in your hand, and it was all product marketing bilge. I mean, they never really talked about the real problems of the business. Meanwhile, of course, their business went out of business, but they never talked about that. So it's obviously phony, and this is a sign of that. So we're at a turning point where perhaps, and definitely in the case of new companies that are being started now, or younger companies, or people with a more modern attitude, they're at least shifting to the notion that while some things in the business should remain private and kept out of the public eye, in general, those parts of the business that don't need to be private could be done openly. So you could actually talk to people about your product plans.
Why not? Yeah.
Or shortfalls in production. So what are the reasons that you don't have product when you told people you would? Or you have a customer support problem and you explain openly why it is that people were stranded at Thanksgiving and you didn't have enough planes, or whatever it is. And certainly as there's a general shift in perception that people are more likely to feel good about a company or a product or service if that people do those sorts of things openly, and not do what was formerly, you know, the norm, which was to shut down, you know, not tell people what was really going on, conceal the truth, whatever. So I think that's a sort of a millennial thing. I mean, this is a turning point where the public, the citizens of countries are now, and the population as a whole, the world, is starting to demand that from companies, from the governments, from organizations.